Detectives in Togas, Chapter 20. It's getting very, very interesting. So when last we left off, the boys had snuck in, they had gone through the bakery into the back of Lucas's house. But once they did that, they were following Tellus, the short, bald head guy with the scar on his head, and he went into Lucas's house by the back door. And then when they actually got up to it and they peeked through, they saw that Tellus was not there anymore. And they snuck in to the curtain where they thought he was, and they found Lucas. No Tellus. And Lucas says that he's gone. Tellus went through the front door. But he left his cloak. So we're confused. Chapter 20 is called Surprises. And Lucas has said that he was the desecrator of the temple, that he did it all, that Tellus didn't do anything. Tellus is innocent. He says, I did it. The boy stared incredulously at Lucas. So you don't believe me? Lucas asked with a dangerous edge to his voice. But the chain belongs to Tellus, Mucius managed to stammer. No! Lucas screamed. The chain and cloak belong to me. Tellus frequently visits me. I lent him the cloak. Tellus sent the courier to the newspaper, Julius murmured. He did it on my suggestion, Lucas said. Tellus has nothing to do with this crime. You've been on the wrong track. He went to the table and hastily rummaged under the heap of papers. Do you recognize that? He asked, showing them a writing tablet. This is Rufus's tablet. I'll tell you just how I copied his handwriting. I slit through the letters, pressed the tablet against the wall of the temple, and painted over it with red paint. There, can you see it? He held it in front of the lantern. Showing up in thin illuminated letters on the writing tablet were the words, Caius is a dumbbell. The method by which the forging had been done was just what the boys had guessed. I also assaulted your teacher and stole the writing tablet from him, Lucas went on, shouting hoarsely. Here are his books and his pictures. And he tossed several rolls of parchment down at their feet. Do you believe me now? The boys believed him. Lucas was also a head taller than Xanthippus. Why have you done all this? Mucius cried out. Why were you so bent on hurting Rufus? He discovered my greatest secret, Lucas said sternly. He must die. Filled with horror, the boys looked desperately around for a way to escape, but again Lucas seemed to guess their thoughts. Don't think you can run off to the prefect and repeat all this, he said mockingly. Oh no, my dears. Tomorrow morning my ship leaves from Ostia. I shall sail back to my native land where I shall be perfectly safe. And he laughed scornfully. And you will stay right here in this vault. You will never manage to open the doors. I alone know the secret. The secret mechanism. He took the sword from the table and with one powerful blow cut through the cords running across the floor. There, now you can't get out at all. You can make all the racket you please. These walls are thick. No one lives back here and nobody ever passes. If you're lucky, you'll be found. If not, well, that's your hard luck. Again, he laughed maliciously. Inwardly, Mucius was rejoicing. Lucas had not thought of the ladder leading to the roof. From there they could call for help, but he rejoiced too soon. Lucas considered for a moment. No, you had better be locked up in the cellar, he said. He stopped and lifted a heavy wooden trapdoor in the floor. Beneath yawned a black opening, and the boys saw slippery stone steps leading down into the dark depths. Come on, get down there, Lucas howled, or I'll kill all of you. Surprisingly, Mucius was the first to obey. He walked slowly toward the cellar steps. To reach them, he had to pass close to Lukos. Suddenly, he twisted around, gripped Lukos's arm with one hand, and with the other tried to wrench the sword away from him. Lukos was taken by surprise for a moment. Then he defended himself wildly. But Mucius held on, knowing his life was now at stake. "Help!" he roared. The others awoke from their numbed daze and fell upon Lucas all at once. Like a pack of wild cats, they gripped his arms and legs and tried to drag him to the ground. Lukos swayed back and forth. He succeeded in freeing one arm and struck Caius in the face with his clenched fist. Caius went down but was instantly on his feet and fighting mad. He seized the heavy stool in both hands and brought it down with all his might on the back of Lukos's head. Lukos fell forward on his face and lay motionless with his arms outstretched. The boys were pale and breathing heavily. "Bravo, Caius," Mucius said, gasping for air. Caius was still standing with the stool in his hands. His nose was bleeding and his eyes were ablaze with fury. "Shall I give him another?" he breathed. "I think he's dead," Mucius said. That was more than Caius had bargained for. "Dead?" he stammered. "Dead?" Flavius repeated, shuddering. "Come on, we've got to get out," Mucius urged them. "Get out?" the others asked. "How can we?" "The ladder," Mucius explained. "We'll climb up on the roof and call for help." He snatched up the lantern and ran to the long corridor which led to the front entrance. The others trotted after him. The ladder stood in a niche beside the first door. By the dim glow of the lantern, the boys could see 10 or 12 rungs. The rest of the ladder was lost in the dim shadows above. "That's pretty steep," Flavius murmured. "Don't worry, I've been up on top already," Mucius encouraged him, and began climbing. The others followed close to his heels, but when they had reached about the middle, the foot of the ladder suddenly slipped backward and the top slid down. It slid down the wall at a rapidly increasing speed. Desperately, the boys clung to the rungs. Luckily, the bottom struck the opposite wall of the corridor and the ladder came to a stop. The boys climbed back as far as they could and then jumped down to the floor. "Boy, that might have turned out badly," Publius said with relief. They tried to set the ladder up again, but it was jammed so tightly between the two walls that they could not budge it. After struggling desperately with it for a long time, they gave up. They shook the door, drummed their fist against it, but here, too, their efforts were in vain. "This is useless," Mucius decided. "Remember, there's still another door beyond this one. No one can hear us." They hurried back to the vaulted room and hammered against the rear door with every object they could pick up. They could not get at the shutters because of the iron bars over the window. Caius and Publius tugged wildly at the ends of the cords which Lukos had severed, but the door did not move. "Wait," Antonius said suddenly. "Remember, Lukos spoke of another door in there, where Tellus went out." He pointed to the curtain in front of the niche. They dashed into the chamber and stopped in amazement. 4 bare stone walls confronted them. There was neither door nor window. The candle on the table had burned down to almost nothing and was sputtering its last gasps. "How could Tellus have gone out?" Mucius said slowly. "Maybe there's a secret door," Julius said, and began tapping the walls. But as he approached a dark corner, he started back in fright. A fat toad was squatting on the floor, staring fixedly at him. "That's Tellus!" Antonius cried. "Lukos has changed him into a toad." The others backed away slowly, throwing suspicious glances at the toad. "Lukos said himself that he can't cast spells," Flavius whispered. "He only said that so we wouldn't know Tellus is the toad," Antonius said. "After all, it's a terrible crime to change anyone into a toad." They returned to the vaulted room and slumped down discouraged on the floor, all in a row. They were tired and frightened, and their bare feet felt like lumps of ice. Lukos still lay motionless beside the cellar trapdoor, which had fallen shut during their scuffle. The mysterious disappearance of Tellus made their skin crawl. None of them quite believed Tellus had been changed into a toad, but still he seemed to have vanished into thin air. The lantern Mucius had placed on the table was growing steadily dimmer. And we have a picture of them. And they're all lined up against the wall. And there is Lucas lying on the floor. Soon we'll be sitting in the dark, Mucius said, sighing. He drew up his knees and wrapped his cold feet in his toga. Flavia, sitting at the end of their row, leaned forward and asked nervously, "How long will we have to wait until someone finds us?" "Until we starve to death," growled Caius. "It takes a while to starve," Julius said. "So much the worse," said Publius with a short laugh. "People can live for years on bread and water," Antonius said. "My father says that prisoners of war are given only bread and water, and they have to work besides that." "If only we had bread and water," Caius said. "I could eat 10 loaves of bread right now." "They say thirst is worse than hunger," Flavius whimpered. "Stop that," Mucius snapped at him. "Rufus has had nothing to eat or drink for 3 days, and he is still alive." "But he won't be for long," Publius said. Julius regarded Lucos thoughtfully. "I should like to know what was that secret of his which Rufus discovered," he said. "Do you think it had something to do with the red wolf and the sheep's clothing?" "Rufus must have been delirious when he said that," Publius suggested. "That's right," Antonius agreed. "People say all kinds of things when they're starving to death. We once had a slave, an old man from Greece, who broke a bowl and was put in chains. He was given nothing to eat. I visited him and tried to cheer him up. He was so pleased he told me a funny story. 'The earth isn't flat,' he said, 'but round as a ball, and it turns around the sun.' I brought him food on the sly because I was sorry for him." Now, that's something they still believed back then, that the earth was flat, not round, and that the sun went around the earth instead of the earth going around the sun. So they were going, somebody knew it. "He has a strange ring on his finger," said Julius, who was still staring at Lucos. Antonius crawled closer to Lucos and then cried out in astonishment, "Oh, that's Talus's seal ring! I saw the ring this afternoon on Talus's finger." Now, a seal ring is a ring that has a seal on it, and then you press it into clay, and the seal imprints itself on the clay. And so if you send a letter that has a clay seal on it, you know who it's from. "That's odd," Julius murmured. "He must have stolen it from Tellus before he changed him into a toad," Antonius said. "What does a toad need a ring for?" he must have thought. "And look here," Antonius exclaimed again. "See what Lucas has on his feet?" The boy stooped forward curiously. "Oh, come here, Rascal." My cat wants to go out. The black cloak with the silver stars had slipped up, and they could see that Lucas was wearing some peculiar shoes with extremely high wooden soles. "Those are cawthorns," Julius said. "Actors wear them on the stage." "So that's why he walked in that funny way," Mucius muttered to himself. "But why is he wearing them?" Flavius asked. "Aha!" Mucius exclaimed, in sudden excitement, leaping to his feet. Alarmed, the others jumped up also. "What is it? What is it, Mucius?" they cried. "What dumbbells we are!" Mucius groaned. "What complete dumbbells! Now I know who the Red Wolf is." "Who?" the others demanded in feverish excitement. "Lucos." Mucius brought out the word like a curse. "Lucos is the Greek word for wolf. Don't you come here." "I'm sorry, boys and girls, but Rascal wants to come out." "Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Oh my goodness, come here. Come here. I'll let you out." Oh my goodness. "Oh, you want to see a big cat? Oh, look at this baby. He is big. Can you say hi? Can you say hi?" She said, "No, I want to go outside." "Okay. Go outside." Oh, I forgot to put it on pause. Sorry about that. I forgot to put it on pause. I could have paused it. I'm sorry. Let me get back. Okay, so where was I? Leukos is the Greek word for wolf. Don't you remember the last list of Greek words we learned? Of course, Antonius seconded him. Oh, Leukos the wolf, the others repeated in chorus. But Leukos isn't red, Caius pondered. Not Leukos, Mucius said, but remember the sign outside the door? The word Leukos is painted in bright red letters. All we had to do was to look across the street, and we would have realized at once what Rufus meant. The red wolf. Leukos is the red wolf. Naturally, he couldn't have known we would be so stupid. Even Xantippus was stupid. Oh, Leukos, the wolf, the others repeated, staring wide-eyed at the lifeless Leukos. But what about the sheep's clothing? Publius asked. There, Mucius said, pointing to Leukos's tangled, dirty yellow hair. That looks like sheep's wool. He stooped forward and gripped Leukos by the hair. What are you doing? The others exclaimed. We are supposed to tear the sheep's clothing off him. You'll see in a minute, Mucius said with grim resolution. But you can't pull a dead man by the hair, Flavius protested in horror. I don't care, Mucius growled, and he pulled with all his strength. Suddenly something gave, and he was holding a wig in his hand, and underneath it appeared a bald head with a large scar across it. It's Tellus! The other boys shouted, incredulous. I suspected it, Mucius murmured, but he was really just as surprised as the others. Oh, my goodness. Leukos is Tellus. Tellus is Leukos. Oh, my goodness. And that's the end of the chapter. And we've got to stop there. Until next time. I wonder, is Tellus Leukos Tellus? Is he dead? Did the boys kill him? What's going to happen? How are they going to get out? Why in the world would Leukos be Tellus? We've got to figure this out, but we'll have to do it tomorrow. See you soon.